All right, for the sake of the recording, I'll use the microphone. So good evening, everyone. My name is Danielle Fuentes Morgan, and I am an associate professor in the Department of English and the associate director of the Center for the Arts and Humanities. Very quickly, just to sort of give you an overview of what the center is and what we do, we foster interdisciplinary collaboration in research, creative activity, and outreach. We build and support partnerships, projects, and programming on campus and with our local community. And importantly, this is a space on campus that works to bring together faculty, students, staff, visiting artists and scholars, and the broader Santa Clara community to use the arts and humanities as the building blocks for a better future and a more just world. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to this event tonight, Building Words. I'm going to try that again. This has been a really long day, y'all. Building Words, Building Worlds. An abolitionist poetry reading and dialogue, which is our fall headline event, organized by CAH faculty fellow and my colleague in English, Daniel B. Summerhill. So Daniel B. Summerhill is a poet and essayist from Oakland, California. He is the author of Divine, Divine, Divine and Mausoleum of Flowers. He's the inaugural Poet Laureate of Monterey County, and he's earned fellowships from Baldwin for the Arts, Virginia Center for the Creative Arts, the Watering Hole, and elsewhere. His work has been published widely and is absolutely worth reading if you have not, including venues such as the Academy of American Poets, Obsidian, Plowshares, Callaloo, the Indiana Review, the Wall Street Journal, the Rumpus, and elsewhere. Daniel B. Summerhill is also a professor of poetry at Santa Clara University and believes in the liberation of oppressed peoples everywhere, amen, especially through the dissolution of empire, amen again. So I'm very glad to now turn things over to my brilliant colleague, Daniel B. Summerhill. Woo!
Testing. Can y'all hear me? Is the mic picking things up? Cool. Thanks. Is it low?
Yeah, maybe just.
Testing. Check. 1, 2. Check.
Yeah.
I'll just speak up.
Yeah.
Good evening, folks. Thanks for being here. Danielle, thanks for the introduction and the kind words about my work. This event is exciting to me, mostly because I get to dialogue with two folks who I admire, and I brought them here to campus so that you all can admire them too. So thanks to the Center for Arts and Humanities, thanks to Britt, to Danielle, to Amy, all the folks who make these events happen. Thanks to the College of Arts and Humanities and the folks who support and sponsor these interdisciplinary kind of events. And thank y'all for being here. I'm going to introduce my co-readers, who you'll hear from in just a moment. So I'll introduce them, and then you'll get to hear from them in just a bit. Dr. Chrissy Hernandez is a writer, organizer, and educator from Salinas, Prunedale, California. After working as a spoken word teaching artist for over a decade in the Bay Area, Continuation High School, Juvenile Hall, Middle School, and other community sites, she is now an associate professor of service learning and social action at Cal State Monterey Bay. Her scholarship invested in the spaces of possibility when bridging abolition feminism and education justice has been published in Teachers College Record, Multicultural Perspectives, and the Handbook of Critical Approaches to Policy and Practice with Routledge. She is the managing editor of Lessons in Liberation, an abolitionist toolkit for educators with AK Press. So a round of applause, please, for Chrissy. Also, who you'll hear from tonight, Maddy Clifford is an Oakland-rooted writer, artist, and organizer who has spent a decade as a teaching artist throughout the West Coast and even as far away as Uganda and Argentina, on college campuses, community centers, and even with youth detention facilities. Maddy believes in the transformative power of creative writing, performance, and other artistic disciplines to strengthen emotional intelligence and literacy skills. Maddy served as the cultural strategist in the government for the city of Oakland and was recently part of an Intersection for the Arts Thrive program for BIPOC arts leaders. As an arts worker, Maddy composed the musical score for Flyaway Productions' aerial dance piece, Apparatus of Repair produced a hip-hop album about climate change called Down Chance, and spearheaded a Black feminist podcast called What's Pimpin', in collaboration with KQED Arts. Maddy's written work can be found in the Prison Reports, Hammer and Hope, and Teen Vogue. She has appeared on Last Week Tonight with John Oliver and collaborated with More Perfect Union. Maddy currently works as a creative media strategist at the Debt Collective, the nation's first union of debtors. She recently became a member of the California for the Arts Grassroots Artist Advocacy Program, or cohort, I'm sorry. Please, round of applause for Maddy. So you'll hear from them in just a moment, but first, I want to begin the event, not with Tim's, but with Assata. So Assata Shakur was a member of the Black Panther Party, was a member of the Black Liberation Army, a poet, a mother, a brilliant poet, a brilliant mind, and someone who was falsely accused of a crime. And through a long and storied history of abuse, assault, and being subject to cruel punishment while a prisoner of war, was ultimately liberated and lived out her days in Cuba before departing this earth less than 2 months ago. She is someone I'm indebted to because of her teachings and her dedication. Her work also allows us to contextualize the idea of prison abolition work and to see where past movements have made mistakes, where we might place our work within a lineage of freedom fighters and folks working for the transformation of the world. So I'd like to begin by reading Assata Shakur's Love. Love is contraband in hell, because love is an acid that eats away bars. But you, me, and tomorrow hold hands and make vows that struggle will multiply. The hacksaw has 2 blades. The shotgun has 2 barrels. We are pregnant with freedom. We are a conspiracy. So the theme for the Center for Arts and Humanities for this year is reimagining futures. And immediately I thought about abolition. We'll touch on why a bit more through our poems and our dialogue, but I wanted to point your attention briefly to the screen here, to this, which has become a symbol of the work of prison abolition. When you look at a caterpillar, one does not imagine a butterfly, or at least I don't. And as the caterpillar moves through its different iterations, we definitely don't imagine it sprouting vibrant, colorful wings capable of lifting its body into the air in search of something more free. Yet, there are 18,000 species of butterflies floating around the world, each a testament to the transformation, a testament to the quotidian nature of hope, a metaphor for us to stretch our faith, to elongate our imagination. In speaking about conocimiento, the writer and scholar Gloria Anzaldúa says that when you relate to others not as parts, problems, or useful commodities, but from a connectionist view, compassion triggers transformation. The same way that a chrysalis is sympathetic to its dismembered state that lies inside, understanding its role in the life of the butterfly, so too can we be transformed through our pressing attention to one another's humanity. Or, as Gloria Anzaldúa continues, we should look beyond the illusion of separate interest to a shared interest. We're in this together. No one's an isolated unit. We dedicate ourselves not to surface solutions that benefit only one group, but to a more informed service to humanity. In this vein, before we get into the readings, I wanted to do something that abolitionists, including Dr. Hernandez, has instilled in me to do before I enter any sort of dialogue about abolition work. And that is to frame it with this quote here. Because much of this work requires us to conceive of a world many of us don't know is possible, I want us to agree, I'm asking y'all here, that we will lean into the dream side of our minds. The scholar and abolitionist Miriam Kaba says, let's begin our abolitionist journey not with the question, what do we have now and how can we make it better, but rather, what can we imagine for ourselves in the world? And if we do that, then the possibilities of a more just world await us. The way I like to think about that is our actions actualize our dreams, right? It's also important to establish an understanding of the 13th Amendment because not only is there a misunderstanding about slavery, but there is also a misunderstanding about one of the things that governs, drives, and frames our ability to evolve. So the 13th Amendment, which is on the screen there, says, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except, there's the word except, as punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. It's also important because disinformation is prevalent and censorship is at an all-time high to have a basic understanding of what I mean when I say prison abolition. So here's a definition. I thought I had it on the slide, but I don't. This is from Miriam Kaba's We Do This Till We Free Us. Prison industrial complex abolition is a political vision, a structural analysis of oppression, and a practical organizing strategy. While some people might think of abolition as primarily a negative project, let's tear everything down tomorrow and hope for the best, folks might say. PIC abolition is a vision of a restructured society in a world where we have everything we need: food, shelter, education, health, art, beauty, clean water, and more things that are foundational to our personal and community safety. With that, I'm going to read a poem that I wrote about 5 years ago now, when my nephew, his name is Jeremiah, when he was arrested in Nevada. And not knowing what to do in that moment, I turned to the page to make sense of not only my nephew, but also of the larger idea of prison in general. So this is Letter to My Nephew, and it's after an essay of the same title, which was written by James Baldwin, and it was published in The Progressive originally, and it appears as the first essay in his collection, The Fire Next Time. So this is Letter to My Nephew after James Baldwin. Dear Jeremiah, I have begun this letter many times to no avail. I scroll Facebook and see your face like a still picture passed by a moving train, announced and alluring. Your face, your father's, who I know mostly through story, and I'd like to think stories make a man, but more so your mother's. Like her, you are tough, passionate, eager for words, with a great tendency to become truculent at the first sign of perceived threat. You come from a place that measures a man by the size of his roar and not the size of a man. Born 60 years after your great-grandfather to the day, he is no longer here, but his stories are. Memory counts for something. Like when you were in kindergarten and he traversed the 15-degree incline of 73rd in Oakland to pick you up from school. I imagine he had wrangled mountains greater during his time navigating the oil and water of the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, and the 2010s. What does it mean to be born at the what does it mean to be born at the foot of a mountain, make it to the top, only for the other side to be a shadow cast by a greater mountain, a repeated gavel? Though born of another era, I suppose you know something of this nature, the perilous conditions of the lie, and your relentless quest to prove that you are indeed a man. A seemingly improbable task in a land that refuses to face itself, refuses to confront its illegitimacy, its oil, your blood. And this is troubling, but not surprising. Yes, troubling, but not surprising. And the atrocity is routine and is still perpetuated by what James Baldwin calls the lie. That is the fundamental ideology that you and I are not human, and therefore do not deserve compassion, love, respect, empathy, or, in frequent cases, life itself. And this is not merely a mindless conception. Everything in our current world, the United States especially, revolves around the lie. It allows and fuels our economic, social, and moral systems. What does it mean to be born into this allegory which you did not ask, but must? A repeated gavel. Death won't ruin you. It is one mountain we all succumb to, relegating yourself to the valley in which the system cast its sharp gaze will ruin you. I am writing to you because I love you. Don't you ever forget it. I do not know what Nevada will try to do to you, but I do know you are fuel at a time in which the American machine in circadian fashion wishes itself full. You face a system that is best described as the language of conquest. You, who raps, knows the diligence and flexibility of words. I know this to be true when you wrote, "You niggas stupid. If we kill each other off, who gonna lead the revolution?" Like your mother, your heart claws its way out of a puffed up chest, beating twice as fast. I mean this to say you are always in search of something greater than yourself. Even if you spell heart revolution, REVOLUTION. Your mother spells it God or Jesus or whatever name feels holiest at the moment. Jesus says, pray for your enemies. The bumper sticker says, pray for America. How much home is left after a parasite evacuates? I don't ask. Praying for a prey to off itself isn't the best use of my time. I guess we all have different tongues, but the tongue isn't the point. The point is that you have just made 1 year old, and routinely I tipped the walls of your playpen to set you free. The peril that lies outside pales in comparison to what I now know of the cage and its offspring. What I know is that no man walks into a cage alive and eludes its prized hunger. Bred of this peril, you were born a black boy running with more than you could carry. All that rhythm, all that audacity, all that persistence, you sharing your grandmother's eyes in the black bloodline they derived from, the crime. You were born guilty in a land forged in the palm of your guilty ancestors. America requires your guilt in its innocence. But Jimmy says, innocence is the lie. So I tell you of our conditions because I must tip your cage. I tell your grandmother, black is a fugitive narrowly escaping because of love. Blackness is a fugitive in love. America, in its innocence, coaxes you to settle for this reality, the gavel and what it allows for. I know how it looks. America changes every day and remains the same. It looks as it did when you entered the world, irredeemable. America will have you believe you were born into an absolute, an oversized coffin. Yes, we wept when you were born. Yes, we haven't stopped weeping since. But you have survived because of love. America's absence of love will do what it must to survive. You must survive too, for your children and your children's children. That is more of a proverb than a prayer. It was the late June Jordan who said, sometimes I am the penalty and sometimes I am the companion to fire. Nephew, I'm afraid there is no salvation for a nation that is defined by what it can consume. But you must know that you are forged here in the flames. It is the fire this time which will beckon you, dearest Jeremiah. It is the smoke that will escape the cage, eager for a land liberated enough to ascend in. Your uncle, Daniel. With that, I'd love to bring to the stage my counter partner, co-conspirator, former colleague, Dr. Still colleagues, Dr. Chrissy Hernandez.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm used to having a thing to put all my things, but let me just... So I'm going to put a timer on the floor for myself. Okay. Put this in my pocket and be cool like Daniel. All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming out on this rainy, blustery day. I wanted to... Can y'all hear me okay with that? I love, Daniel, that you were talking about lean into the dream side of our minds, because where I got that from is from Maddy,
Hey.
from back when we were teaching artists, and she would start workshops with that was one of the ground rules. And so ever since then, that's been a ground rule. And so then we've been in spaces, and you heard that ground rule, and then it's like coming back. And I really love that.
Nice.
And I think it really tells us something about how abolition is relational. And I just love that. So there's so much to say, and I'm going to try to stay focused. And I'm also getting used to glasses. I need these for long distance, not short. So one of the things that we talked, that the co-conspirating that we were doing was talking about what would it look like to do a reading, do a collection that is allowing us to be in conversation with our abolitionist poet ancestors. And so the person that I would like to bring into the room, who is also in the beautiful piece that you just shared, is June Jordan. There's a lot to say about June Jordan. I was an undergrad in June Jordan's Poetry for the People a year after she passed. And when I think about kind of what brought me to abolition, and when I think about abolitionist poet ancestors, I think about June Jordan and the way that she brought a principled, radical interconnection and really insisted on that. And so I thought I would share a piece that June Jordan wrote in 1982 called Moving Toward Home. And she wrote this upon reading a quote in the New York Times shortly after the Israeli massacre of Palestinian refugees in Sabra and Shatila outside of Beirut, Lebanon. A little background is that though the exact number of victims is disputed, depending on the source, it's believed that between 1,700 and 2,000 Palestinians were killed in the massacre. And the attack was officially declared an act of genocide by the United Nations General Assembly. And this poem was also part of a very public debate that was happening in the early 80s between June Jordan and Adrienne Rich. So just giving people homework if y'all are interested in reading more about that. Can't help myself. So this is called Moving Toward Home by June Jordan. Where is Abu Fadi, she wailed. Who will bring me my loved one? The New York Times, September 20th, 1982. I do not wish to speak about the bulldozer and the red dirt, not quite covering all the arms and legs. Nor do I wish to speak about the night-long screams that reached the observation posts where soldiers lounged about. Nor do I wish to speak about the woman who shoved her baby into the stranger's hands before she was led away. Nor do I wish to speak about the father whose sons were shot through the head while they slit his own throat before the eyes of his wife. Nor do I wish to speak about the army that lit continuous flares into the darkness so that the others could see the backs of their victims lined against the wall. Nor do I wish to speak about the piled up bodies and the stench that will not float. Nor do I wish to speak about the nurse again and again raped before they murdered her on the hospital floor. Nor do I wish to speak about the rattling bullets that did not halt on that keening trajectory. Nor do I wish to speak about the pounding on the doors and the breaking of windows and the hauling of families into the world of the dead. I do not wish to speak of the bulldozer and the red dirt, not quite covering all the arms and legs, because I do not wish to speak about unspeakable events that must follow from those who dare to purify a people, those who dare to exterminate a people, those who dare to describe human beings as beasts with two legs, those who dare to mop up, to tighten the noose, to step up military pressure, to ring around civilian streets with tanks, those who dare to close the universities, to abolish the press, to kill the elected representatives of the people who refuse to be purified. Those are the ones for whom we must redeem the words of our beginning. Because I need to speak about home. I need to speak about living room, where the land is not bullied and beaten to a tombstone. I need to speak about living room, where the talk will take place in my language. I need to speak about living room, where my children will grow without horror. I need to speak about living room, where the men of my family between the ages of 6 and 65 are not marched into a roundup that leads to the grave. I need to talk about living room, where I can sit without grief, without wailing aloud for my loved ones, where I must not ask, where is Abu Fadi? Because he will be there beside me. I need to talk about living room, because I need to talk about home. I was born a Black woman, and now I am become a Palestinian. Against the relentless laughter of evil, there is less and less living room. And where are my loved ones? It is time to make our way home. All right. So I was saying that the bad idea is that then it means that then we're like, I'm like, have to follow June Jordan. That's the flaw in the plan. All right. So I'm gonna read a few pieces, a few short ones. Unsurprisingly, my poetry has gotten much shorter once I became a mom, because for obvious reasons. So I'm gonna move into that. Every day. Welcome to this marvelous life, my little ones. Love yourself and each other. Give yourself the dignity of grace and guts, grief and gratitude. Eat food that takes time. Create to escape, to confront, and to celebrate the texture of a lemon picked fresh from your Amma's tree. Be an ancestor in your actions and descendant in your heart. Fight but never harm. Love but never lose yourself. Find freedom here in ink, clay, paint. Remember who you are. One second. After his 9th day of daycare, my baby presses a watercolor brush down, jamming metal into paper, and says, "This bomb." Words he picks up like petals. Bomb, we ask? What is a bomb? Boom, he says, and continues, fingers close, hair speckled with paints, and I can feel myself straining against the whole world. Not yet, I think. Not yet. It's not a good sign, y'all. I'm two poems in, all right. So this is teaching poetry inside or meditation on rage. Just beyond the frame is a monster's gaze, measuring the skulls of our children for prison cells. The whole world's watermarked. I read, the cops moved up on his boy. His head lifts. It don't say moved up, it says murdered. He is maybe 13 and sketches on the back of his poem a man in a tank top, bandana across his forehead, lying in the grass, cheek resting across the tattoos on his arms and looking off into the distance, dreaming and at peace. Flowers in the tattoos, flowers brush his cheek. May they rest, may they be free. This is the way. I don't know more than the branching of new growth after a hard rain in spring, the tender insistence of green and leaf, the petals that form and fall and form again, like flags or sign or silence, and yet buds rise, blooming against so much bloodshed. The truth is, to deny that we are all someone's child, we say we are all God's children, instead of the love that binds us is God's breath, and every someone's child is a sacred body, rainstorm, kiss. All right. How y'all doing? We doing all right?
Good.
All right, doing good, great. Okay. So this is Texas 2024. After the emergency room staff take her away, she walks to the lobby restroom with its fluorescent, relentless light. The toilet seat covers, the trash can almost full, the bits of dirt and hair in the corners, the scuff marks of shoes, crumpled paper towels, pink hand soap, knocks on the door, blood, and laws inviting it all to stir around her as she miscarries, her husband calling 911 for help. Her body is holy. Her body is light and orbit and pulse. Her body deserves the decency of grief or relief or clarity or whatever she feels. She deserves care that honors her. She deserves care, and her doctor should not, she should not have to worry about whether someone will call the police. All right. This is called Love. I wrote this for my comadres, for my homegirls. Love. Hey, my love, how are you, beauty? Love. Call me when you get home, brilliant, badass, sister, comadre, thinking of you. You okay, girl? How was it? Were they nice, respectful? Let's go. No one speaks to you, me, us like that. How you feeling? Can I bring you pho, your favorite flowers, gin? You want to come grocery shop, coffee shop, walk along the ocean? I'll sit right here. You don't have to move. Love you, miss you. Call whenever, friend. So with our current political context, I wanted to read a couple older pieces. And if there are college students here, which I don't know if there are, because y'all are blurry. But this is a piece I wrote when I was a college student. And I'm just really thinking about our immigrant family members right now. So this is about my grandfather. Strawberries. Abuelito, you once told me the plastic sheets used to seal in pesticides, stretching across acres, were actually ocean waves touching down on our valley. I dreamed the bright reflecting cover was an outlawed slip and slide, you laughing at the bottom with arms outstretched. But as you grew thin, and Mom repeats, memorize his face, listen when he takes you to the fields, tattoo his voice on your eardrums. My dreams shift to dark scenes of agua de fresa rotting upon contact with my tongue. You, abuelito, shake off white particles, methyl bromide. Methyl bromide burns through your skin, reveals your future Dia de los Muertos skeleton. Your bony fingers snatch a strawberry from my mouth, disintegrating instantly with your bones as I scoop heaps of ashes, looking for you in them. Perhaps I'm too old now to trace Selena's strawberry roads in search of you. No, I cannot kiss your deep tanned cheek, cannot ask what dawn looks like as it breaks and brightens the rows upon rows you combed in search of just right berries. But I still search the tight bends and dust, still seek your leather palms, raising earth to my small fingertips. I can still hear you explain, if it is dark, it is rich. If it crumbles, the roots can take. I still see you pull down the sky to show me thick clouds so I can remember when early rain comes, strawberries carry brown spots on their backs, get tilled under, and their soil-like hands push up against plastic and wait. The cross. On the border between Tecate and Centro, power lines crackle and buzz overhead like flies swarming under our eyelids. Boulders transform to skulls that chatter and stare and say nothing. East of Tecate, Border Patrol agents perch atop sandstone mountains, all quiet gleaming steel. The soil gathers clandestine in our nostrils. Bullet holes mock religious wanderers. This is not desert. 12 times Jesus has died here. Jesus has died here. Jesus has died here, trying to find reprieve. All right. Ooh. Okay. All right. I have 3 more pieces. We'll see how we do. Okay. So this was the first poem where I was actually really like, what would it look like to write with an abolitionist imagination? So this was that first poem. And here's the thing. I imagine our mothers reading each other's faces and ours, asking how it was that we raised him to find pleasure in hurt, to summon the high pitch of fear. And here's the thing. I imagine his mother, who was my second mother, brushed her hair clean of the heroin for a moment, that we all held her as she cried a lifelong thirst for beyond the stark light of a checkout stand. And here's the thing, I imagine she is well enough to say, I'm sorry he hurt you, my son. And I am well enough to say, I am sorry he is hurt too. And my brother, for whom your son was a brother, says, I will walk you into well. And here's the thing, I imagine we do not call the police. I call there is no word yet, to sit with me, to walk with me to class, to my after-school job, to say I'll be just there, to find him, to ask what he needs, to ask why, to say this is not. And here's the thing, I imagine I tell all the other men, and we talk into the night, what can we do? How can we hold you? What can we hold? I don't know, but I don't need to. Instead, they make ground. They speak horizons. And here's the thing. I imagine I learn that healing is warm light. I learned windows wide open. There are so many of us making web, making love, making talk into windows wide, an eye wide open, a mountain night sky, a tumbling storm, a resting place. But here's the thing. Police, silence, heavy drapes. She said you were selling yourself for drugs, you asked for it. Not family, listening for every breath. Call us when he really hurts you. Nights are a thunder of held breath. But here's the thing. There was this. My brother came and did walk me into well, to my job, to my classes. He said, I'll be just there. And he was the word that we do not yet have. All right. I have two more pieces. One more piece. I'm going to do one more. And then I'm out of here. I'm going to do salvation. Do not speak of an earned salvation. Speak of angels suspended on the shoulders of single mothers as their shifts end, kids in bed. Speak to me of the God who cradles the bodies of young girls as they find desire in that same flesh. Speak of a hellfire reserved for beer breath ripping the cloth of a woman as she cries out to a God who does not come. Speak to me of a place to lay tired limbs where the skin of eager lovers peels away like husks arching back in awe of the dark, luminescent kernels. Speak to me in liberation's tongue, in the smooth green arms of aloe, in the curl of dual spines. Speak to me of the God with sore feet, worn boots, mud-caked and leaning, while the stove's flame tickles the comal and will rise when we rise. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Chrissy. Now I'd like to welcome up Maddy, Clifford. Y'all give a round of applause.
Oh, sorry, I have my mic on while I'm hooting and hollering. Sorry, that's how enthusiastic.
Does it work? Yay. How y'all doing?
Pretty good.
I'm so inspired. I just want to say again how honored I am to be here with Daniel and Chrissy. I just admire how much you all have done and all of the work that you've done over the years. I'm like fangirling right now. I don't know if y'all are, but these people are here and I'm just like, wow. So I want to start with just sharing that my poet is Claude McKay. And the reason I chose Claude McKay is because there's a poem that really spoke to me. One thing about my abolitionist journey is, so my father was from Jamaica. He was born in a house in a parish on the eastern side of the island, which thank goodness was not hit by the hurricane. But he was born in a house with 5 other brothers and sisters on the countryside, and he immigrated to the United States. And when I was 16 years old, unfortunately, his life was taken by someone else. As you can imagine, it had a tremendous impact on me as a child. And the person who actually was responsible for that ended up dying by suicide in an ICE detention facility last year, which was widely publicized. And I share that because I want to say that I think a lot of people are enemies, actually, people on the right. They try to act like abolition is some kind of pie in the sky, pipe dream. It's just, you don't really know what it's really like. And I'm standing here before you as someone who has experienced egregious harm. And I know for a fact that the prison industrial complex did not heal me, has not healed me, and will never heal me. And my healing doesn't come from someone else's punishment. And so the reason I chose Claude McKay is because both my father and the person that was responsible for taking his life were immigrated here from the Caribbean. And I wanted to just bring into the space people that, migrants, just like Chrissy did. And also I want to bring into the space the inextricable connections between Black people throughout the diaspora, because Claude McKay was such an important part of the Harlem Renaissance. And that there has always been solidarity between different Black communities, Black Americans and Caribbean Americans and African Americans. So this is the poem, and it always makes me think about my dad every time I read it. The Tropics of New York by Claude McKay. Bananas ripe and green and ginger root, cocoa in pods and alligator pears, and tangerines and mangoes and grapefruit, fit for the highest prize at parish fairs. Set in the window, bringing memories of fruit laden by low swinging rills, and dewy dawns and mythical blue skies in benediction over nun-like hills. My eyes grew dim, and I could no longer gaze. A wave of longing through my body swept, and hungry for the old familiar ways, I turned aside and bowed my head and wept. It always makes me think about the migrant experience, because it's like people act like folks leave these beautiful countries, paradise, and just the sun and the music and the food and the culture. Like, you don't just leave that for no reason, right? And they're just like, oh, they just want to come here. Oh, what, to work and washing dishes in the back of a diner in Utah? No, like they're forced here, okay? So yeah, I just wanted to share that. Also, just context, I do a lot of rapping. I'm going to be doing a cappella for you today. For those that don't know some of the context of hip hop, so usually a bar is 4 counts. I don't have a beat behind me, but that's usually how it works. So the first verse I'm going to read is called Stand in Love. Stand in love, don't fall in love. Sounds real nice till stuff gets rough. Might avoid the advance, but steal a glance. The potential to enhance your whole mental. Style's influential. Higher state is the object of desire, but while you're saying hi to all those cutie pies, I wish you'd realize I'm constant. 3.1415. Silly got them good vibes. Let's decide. Please suspend your disbelief. Pretend it's possible. Might be fun, but less logical. We'll navigate in charted waters. We'll call it nautical or lost cause. I can't organize this chaos. Love relapse. Past that, I just relax on this beat. Eventually, love come down slow like the sap from a tree. Ooh, wee, I'm a gem. Those other stones is jewelry. I stay in your lips like a swish of sweet in the zone. I bring the heat, they go out dying embers. Wait, let me explain. Couldn't play such a particular pain. Used to have me waiting in vain. That was then, this is now. Now I uplift when I down chant. All is fair in love and war. Meet me eye to eye, make windows to the soul where the light can't diminish. Never falling down because I fight to the finish. Overstand this love is endless.
Yes, right.
Okay, that's one. I think I'm gonna, in the interest of time, I think I'm gonna go straight to a poem that I wrote. One of the ways that Chrissy and I know each other is we both worked with incarcerated youth, and I was a poet in residence at the San Francisco Juvenile Detention Center for 8 years. So this poem, once I find it, is basically about my experience working there. I didn't think about how holding this would be, but here we go. There we go. So this poem is called Where to Run. He stands in one corner of a cell. In juvenile hall, they call them rooms, not cages. Guards are called counselors, not correctional officers. And you might hear words like rehabilitation, even though discipline is rule of thumb. There is nowhere to run. No way to escape demons of self-doubt or reason with adolescent fears seething. No mirrors to face, just corners blank as stares from past self. This is how we help some of the most traumatized children in this nation. Tears run, blood runs, but bodies rarely run except in secret. He'll sprint through space-time, close his eyes, he ditches dull beige, becomes cocooned in the full color spectrum. Outside where children play, he once prayed for an end to agony. He'd skip school or pop pills to escape, greeted some mornings by the sting of a broken rib, belly ache. He was taught evil lurks in the next room. He was taught borders are a certain kind of surgery. If he had superpowers, he'd move through concrete walls, his body composed of pure cunning, not flesh, not bone. Right now, he is alone. The truth is he feels safe. Off chaotic streets, roof over his head, food, structure. This process is called institutionalization. The institution is no place for empathy. This is where he learns to be hard, to swallow solitude, to never crack a smile. Enter yours truly, the teaching artist. I visit all the units each Friday. I share the poetic process as necessity. I ask kids to go there to write. And they run with it. Accessing ancestral magic, their pencils dance across blank pages. His restless becomes poem, becomes tangible. He makes me laugh often. He oozes of style, innovation. My incarcerated students trace their roots to Fillmore, the Tenderloin, Mission, Hunters Point, Potrero Hill, the hoods this city keeps secret from its picturesque skyline. San Francisco's not so subtle systematic injustice feels like phlegm in this abolitionist throat. I'm trying to speak, but I'm choking up. In a separate class, one girl's stomach growls, its emptiness loud as an eviction notice. And when someone says she's too sensitive, she turns herself inside out in verse. This poem is where she stores daddy issues, tumors crowding the crevices of her rib cage. This simile is where she cries, afraid to bear children behind bars. This is where she whispers beneath her breath, 1,000,000 prayers for each being locked inside the system. And after work, I run. I push buttons and go through 5 doors to get back out again. I breathe fresh, free air. I never turn around once I pass the corner. If I did, I'd see my enemy looming in the distance, a gray facade of grandiose, a barbed wire giant, a stain on our psyches. This beast, the PIC, its wrath is a coroner's report. I've heard lost hope hover on a kid's breath when he associates his existence with his conviction. I'm convinced there are other solutions, proven. Still, our state outsources kids to group homes and they run. We force kids to attend failing schools and they run. We rarely invest in their innate creativity, they run. And when a child kills another child, we forget to mourn both children. The lethal violence of sentences dubbing survivors damage. Folks ask me, how do you manage? I've been in my feelings lately. I've been tripping over triggers. I'm tethered to the way kids look up at me as I'm speaking, seeking in my pupils similar sorrows they swim towards each class period. A guard handcuffs a kid. The facts tug a war with my intestines. Don't get used to this, I tell myself. Don't get used to concrete and doors heavy as they slam shut. I feel myself getting closer yet farther from the source of our collective suffering. I want to disrupt the cycle of violence. I want to laugh often, for the sound is a spellbound echo in the caverns of my memory. California spends 6 times more to incarcerate youth than to educate them. She stands in one corner of her cell. In juvenile hall, they call them rooms, not cages. Guards are called counselors, not correctional officers. And you might hear words like rehabilitation, even though discipline is rule of thumb. Is there nowhere to run? My students are unique genetic fingerprints. They trace themselves across galaxies. She used to paint her lips midnight. She shit-talks the Grim Reaper into a pile of shadows. She smells Sunday dinner cooking on the stove. Her face is warm like her abuela's embrace. She watches her story come to life on the page. The ceremonies of letters, litanies, is like locking eyes with her first love. She'll expand like the tracks of the BART train as it weaves through the region, like the rap bars boys in the Bayview bust into dark closet booths. He'll expand like longing, like the itch to get out and back into something real, tangible, like the way our people dance through nightmares, exquisite with our schemes, always eluding the oppressor's sick dream. No sentence can entangle the intricate webs of warrior tactics we've spun. So please don't ever believe for one moment that there is nowhere to run. Okay, so I think I'm gonna do just one more. This is another verse that I wrote, and this one was kind of like combining the climate emergency to like a lot of issues that are happening in the community. I ain't going back to normal because I'm ready for change. This is a parable. I'm the sower. I get them high, I get them lower, only to stay rooted, solid like the trunk of a tree. So many rings, call me MVP. No need to envy me. Thick like figurines of prehistoric queens, traveling, unraveling the master's plan. No human being is illegal on stolen land. See, it's scary what we normalize. Oppression so internalized. Climate crisis, they're thinking money-wise. I'm trying to verbalize this anguish. Watch me vanquish inner demons. Dangerous when I'm scheming. Go get a hazmat. I'm rare like oxtails. We not have that. West Coast where a song slaps but doesn't hurt. Loyal to the animals and dirt. So call your mother Earth. Cause yeah, I'm hot and bothered. Our sons and daughters sipping poison water, got that melanin, but it's sink or swim. Tides rising, not surprising. CEOs stay enterprising, never reconciling damage done. So it's war drums. 808 bass, arson no trace. High rises up in flames. What's the remedy when the town's looking like the Bronx in the 1970s? Make magic like a phoenix out the ashes. Being black and brown is never out of fashion. They love our culture, but stay locking up our kids and our dreams. We illegal, what you mean? Wrong move like Columbus setting sail. I might throw shade or a Molotov cocktail. Out here vexed, like the sage, because you might get hexed. Just be careful who you prey on. We go crazy. Sideshow seance.
One more time for I'm going to invite both of y'all back on up so we can talk just a bit.
I also wanted to announce that I have a bunch of magazines in the back, and you can feel free to take one when you leave or when you're going out. Feel free to take them. They're just in the back.
Cool. So I'm going to, actually, Britt, if you could, at this time, pass around some note cards and some pens. I would love for you, if you feel so inclined, to share on the note card an experience in which there was an intersection of art and social justice. So this could be anything from small things to anything large that comes to mind, all right? And then Britt will collect those and we'll share out in just a bit. But in the spirit of the theme of the Center for Arts and Humanities this year, I want to ask you both pose a question. So, of course, the theme is reimagining futures. And one of the main components of prison abolition work is this idea of transformation or reimagining a world sans the prison industrial complex. So I'm curious, we heard it in the poems and the pieces you shared, both of you, but I'm curious to know, how do you actively, in your work, kind of think about how transformation or reimagining the world comes into play? Like, is that at the forefront? And if it is, like, how does that manifest in your practice, your art practice? For either of you. Yeah. Transformation. Reimagination, transformation. Yeah, the butterfly's not up there anymore.
I think one of the biggest things I think about is so I'll tell a story. I had a comedy show recently, and I'm always doing different types of art forms. And one of the things I love about comedy is you can actually teach people things through it. So also as educators, we know that comedy and laughter opens up the brain to new ideas. And it was actually around class consciousness, the event. And I was stressing out before the event because I was like, I don't know how to write comedy. Like I've done like, this is my third comedy show, but I was stressing out, and then I reached out to a comedian and she was like, there's actually a formula. Did you know for stand-up? And I was like, no. She was like, oh yes, the premise, the setup, the punchline, and then tags. And I was like, thank you. And the form allowed me to like experiment. And I think as an artist, there's so many ways where when you're teaching the craft of a particular art form, it's like you have the bar, kind of like with rapping, where you have the confines of a bar, but there's so much you can do with it. So there's magic is best in like a container. And I think that's something that I think about when I'm thinking about reimagination through artistic practice. It's not just about the final product, and that's how we're taught art is, but it's actually like helping myself, young people, just people in general understand that there's this like process, this way that artists can look at the world, and however you identify, whether you identify as an artist or not, this way of looking at the world can actually be really beneficial to you, especially as we know that fascism is not just a political ideology, it's a mode of thinking based on being allergic to abstract thought and binaries, and like, you know, they don't want people to be curious. And so I feel like that's kind of where a lot of that thinking intersects.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think about this question in a couple ways. One is, I think as a teacher, as a former teaching artist, that a lot of how it's manifested for me is about how do you make opportunities for other people to dig into their own story, to tell their story, and how that, you know, even though I'm no longer a teaching artist, it just becomes part of your practice as an educator, as a person in the world, right? That always becomes the question. I was thinking, you know, I've had June Jordan on my mind a lot, and you know, when I was an undergrad, so I'll just tell the story really quickly. So when I was an undergrad, I went to the office hours of one of my professors, and I was just like, I'm so passionate about, you know, writing and social justice and like the voices of our communities that aren't being told. And I just kind of was going up, and he was like, have you heard of Poetry for the People? And I was like, no. And he's like, you got to get out of this office. Like, go to Poetry for the People. Those are your people, right? And Poetry for the People has been and was in that time such an incredible program. You know, the ground rules of the program, right, is that Poetry for the People is a program for the poetic and artistic empowerment of people who are less privileged than we, right? And that's like one of the first things that's said. One of the first things you read, right, is understanding your position of privilege as a college student, of having this moment of being able to engage with the written word, engage with other folk stories, and this idea that the people is radically inclusive, right? That when we talk about that was always at the forefront as well. And what changed my life about that program was actually listening to all of my peers' stories, right? I came in with misconceptions I didn't even know I had. I came in with assumptions. I came in with so much garbage narrative. And just through the immense diversity of voices, of just people living their lives, of the work that we did out in the community, hearing people's stories, it transformed everything for me. And so I think part of artistic practice and that insistence on a radical interconnection that I see in June Jordan's writing, that I see in the program that she seeded at UC Berkeley, you know, I think about that importance of what it means to actually look outside of ourselves and to think collectively, and to think about it as radical interconnection. Like I think about that line in her poem, I am become Palestinian, right? That it doesn't say I become Palestinian. It doesn't say I am Palestinian, but she's saying that because she is born a Black woman, she is Palestinian, that she understands that experience, and that because of her experiences, she understands the experience of Palestine. And I think there's so much like important kind of theoretical, I can't think of a word other than juiciness, meatiness there for us to think about, juiciness. My former students, I always say I'm juiced. But there's so much there, right, about there's a politic there that's being insisted on. And what I think is so incredible about, one of the things that really struck me about that poem when I looked it up again is it was written in 1982, which was the year I was born. And then the short poems that I was writing about bloodshed and oppression were written as this most recent genocide against Palestinians started, and that was with the birth of my first child. And so I just think about that kind of intergenerational piece. So it's like interconnection amongst diverse groups, interconnection across generations. There's so much there, right? So
and across the world, right?
Absolutely,
I mean,
yeah.
our
Yeah.
liberation is tied to the liberation of folks across the world,
Yeah.
right? Is how we think about that. There's some questions that y'all had posed. If you want to either get to one of those.
So I have a question for you, Maddy.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. So, and actually, this is a question I would ask to both of you. But I was curious, Maddy. You know, so I've known you for
more than 10 years, right?
like 15 maybe years.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've really seen with your work, so when Maddy and I first met, you were teaching inside, right, in the juvenile hall in San Francisco. And you started this kind of program initiative called Free Me Fast, which is really about trying to bring attention to the experiences of incarcerated children, right? And then now I think like that period, and then I think this kind of flash forward to now you're with the Debt Collective. So I was wondering if you could kind of speak to your relationship between art and social advocacy specifically, because I see that as a pattern in your work. So so we joked about we were gonna like surprise each other with questions, so surprise!
Oh,
but yeah, it was kind of in there, yeah. But I'm just wondering about that connection for you and how you feel like that's evolved over time and where that's come from in your practice.
Absolutely. So just so everybody knows, I am a narrative strategist with the Debt Collective, which is the nation's first union of debtors. And they're pretty well known for pushing the Biden administration to cancel $186 billion of student debt. But also they came out of the Occupy Wall Street movement and doing a lot of economic justice work. And that's a great question because I think sometimes people don't understand why I'm so obsessed with debt. And it actually comes from understanding that debt is actually deeply psychological, especially unjust debts that are tied to what should be public goods like housing, healthcare, and education. And as an educator, while I was working in the inside, I was also psychologically impacted by having about $80,000 in debt. The average teacher now graduates with around $80,000 of debt, and we know that teachers' wages are very low. And then compare that to the fact that the Trump administration is currently recruiting ICE agents at over $100,000, and they use debt cancellation as one of their recruitment tools. So that shows you that debt is actually not so much about money, especially the debt that comes from the ruling class to the working class. It's really just about social control at the end of the day. And so I think for me, just working in juvenile hall, and like I also am somebody, it's funny, JD Vance is always like, those single women with cats, like they don't care about anyone. I'm such a youth advocate, and it's just since I was a youth, like I think I was like radicalized, and so then it just kind of kept going. And I just love young people. I love everything about how you can nurture young people to be happy human beings. And so just working in juvenile hall, I would just see firsthand that a lot of young people just didn't have access to literacy. A lot of, I think around 60% of young people in juvenile hall are have gone through the foster care system. There are certain laws that impact youth differently than adults. And so I was just like, I knew about abolition before I had worked there, but I think just being on the ground and like really being on the front lines, it just woke me up to so many different ideas about like they talk about going to jail is paying a debt to society, and it's bullshit. Excuse my language if there's youth here. Okay, I think there might. Okay, sorry. But this idea these are a lot of the ideologies that they use to make us feel ashamed. And I started to just really get really interested in that. Also, again, back to my father, I didn't even think about this, but one of my favorite memories with him was we actually went to go see a film called Life and Debt. And it's actually about how the IMF used austerity measures and other things to basically ruin the economy in Jamaica and cause the mass exodus of Jamaican people from the island in the 1980s. It's a good film to get an understanding of how austerity processes work. And I remember he yelled at the screen during watching the movie, and I was so embarrassed by it because I was just like, oh my God. But then now I'm like, yeah, like it's such an emotional experience when it's like but it's what fascism is now, like how they're kind of like, it's like upside down world, where it's like they want you to be angry at the wrong people. They want you to be confused about the reality of the situation. And so, and another aspect I would say that really played a key role in my work at Juvenile Hall is my artistic work has always been deeply connected to Black feminism. And I worked actually primarily with young men when I was in Juvenile Hall. I started working in Juvenile Hall when I was 25 years old. And of 5 units, 4 of them were boys units. And people did not believe that I could do it when I first started. But my background as a hip hop artist, I would go in there and I would just, you have to master the room. You can't just, and they were just so responsive. They were so respectful to me. I knew how to treat them. Like a lot of young men just want to know, how do I speak to women? How do I interact? And I was able to have such a positive impact on the young man there. And I find it interesting that now people are talking about like incel culture, and they're talking about manosphere. And it's like, I was doing the work where I was actually like reaching young men, helping them expand their emotional intelligence, critical thinking skills, literacy skills. And I even talked to them about feminism before. And people were like, I'm going into the high security unit, I'm talking about feminism today. And I just talked to them. It's all about perspective. I was like, oh, what is it? Me Too movement. It's not just a women's movement, it's a survivors movement. And they were like, yes. You know why? Because a lot of them are foster kids, right? And it's all about how you connect with young people. But the thing about it was the program was sunset, so in one of the richest cities in the country, where there's so many billionaires, they can't fund like poets to come into these communities anymore. And so it just really woke me up. And I actually was awarded a grant called Creative Wildfire. And I was able to go to some political education sessions. And that was the first time the New Economy Coalition, actually, they were teaching a session. And they were like, yeah, there's an organization and they're striking student debt. And I was like, what? I've heard of a labor union and a tenants union striking rent and striking, or like you're on the factory floor, you're trying to get better wages, better working conditions. But debt? How does that work? And I think just my intrigue caused me to look. I mean, people were joking about, my friends are like, oh, that debt is between Joe and God. I ain't paying that back, right? But never an organized strategy. And so I just started working with my comrades in Debt Collective. It's been about 3 or 4 years now. And one of the key things that connects is this idea of abolition isn't just the presence of, or the absence rather, of police and prisons. It's the presence of the things that actually repair and keep harm low, which is housing, healthcare, education, right? Those are the things that actually we need to enact abolition. So I was like, that's the through line. Like, I've been doing this work because I realized that I'm just so connected to education, and I see how, Steve Biko said the strongest weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed, right? And I'm like, I'm seeing it happening. I'm seeing these young men, and I'm like, I know that if you had access to education, that your whole entire life would be changed. But also they would be a threat to, society. So it's definitely warfare on our children. I'm not going to lie about that. It definitely is. But I think that was what kind of connected me. And I've gained a lot more class consciousness, which has been great. I think debt analysis is a great way to understand late capitalism, which is very much about financialization. So our debts are rich people's assets. So as people continue to go into debt, it's going to be a way for the ruling class to continue to try to squeeze us. So it's something that we can possibly organize around.
Jeez. So much, yes.
Yeah.
Do you have a question? Or
No.
Okay.
I don't actually.
It's all,
No.
no, it's all
That's
good.
cool.
'Cause I have,
No,
I can come up with one later.
Well, I was just gonna say something that something that sparked for me that I was thinking about, and I was thinking about the question about we haven't written down the right how reimagining the world and think about transformation. I think about how when I first started as a writer, I had this idea that writing is an act of healing, and this idea of okay, I'm gonna write and I'm gonna heal, and that through that process, right? Or I'm gonna write with young people and it's gonna be healing. And I think that there's a lot of complications there, because then it's like, I'm not a mental health professional, right? There's a lot of like, as a teaching artist, like in the Wayback Machine, when I was doing that, it was kind of like, wait, but this doesn't feel right? We're encouraging young people to get in front of big groups and like tell their kind of hardest stuff. And, just there was a lot of complication there for me. And I think that over time, this question of healing became one of a systems analysis. And I think that was a really transformational process for me, where it was like writing is healing with a systems analysis and with action. And I think that's where there's been a shift for me in my relationship to writing and my relationship to artistic practice, because I think that there's like something there for me, right? That it can't only be like, this thing happened to me and, I'm going to keep it here, right? But I'm going to insist on an interconnection, right? And that's one of the things I find so powerful about, the Debt Collective, for example, is it's insisting on this kind of radical interconnection. It's saying this isn't your debt that you need to be ashamed of, that you need to carry, that it's just on you, right? It's like, no, we're a collective and we're experiencing a system collectively. And I think that's like such a radical insistence and also like the word radical, as Angela Davis reminds us, right, is just addressing something, grasping something by the roots, right? And so that is, so when I'm hearing you kind of like talk about it, it's making me think about that, right? And so then it makes you think, well, if I'm going to heal from this, if I'm going to address child abuse in my family, if I'm going to do those things, I can't just think about it as this one person, but I have to think kind of ecologically within society. And I think that's really important and powerful. Yeah.
You landed that so well, Chrissy, and what it makes me think of is, did you say ecosystem? Is that what you said? Ecology?
I don't remember. It's been...
Anyways, I think a great deal about that. Now, of course, as poets, often you're thought of as this elusive person who goes off into the woods and like writes poems. And I think about poetry actually in the opposite fashion, in that being in the world is actually what drives me to the page. And you brought up action, right? This idea of action, in that there's a poet who I admire a great deal who says, the poets should just come on down to the demonstration and not be upset when no one wants to hear a poem, and it's true, right? This idea that our actions actually drive us to the page, and it's the page that helps us make sense of the world around us. For example, I work on Saturdays at a farm, and it's in Berkeley, but it's an urban farm that harvests produce and gives it away to communities in West Oakland. Places that are food deserts, food swamps, no access to fresh produce, but there's McDonald's, plenty of McDonald's, right, and fast food joints. And one of my favorite things to do on the farm is to use this big tool. It's called a broad fork, and you have to put your entire body on that broad fork. One of the things in doing the broad forking, tilling these rows and preparing them for crops, one of the things that's come from that is me understanding the connection between tilling the land, helping the masses better understand the conditions that we're in, and how the transformation of the land is also the transformation of the people who will be ingesting and taking part in that harvest. And so there's a connection between the work, the manual labor, the body that I'm putting on this land, the connection to the land, and the actual kind of practice of providing food and resources to impoverished communities. And that has driven me to the page in so many ways. And so folks are like, again, what's your role as an artist or as a writer? I'm like, well, what's my role as a human being? And that is how I am informed. That's what informs my practice as an artist, being in the world, observing the world, witnessing the world, but also taking action as I'm a part of that, that ecosystem in the world. I'm going to ask Britt to collect the cards, because we're going to land on a note here. Don't leave just yet. There's a couple other things. Other questions or thoughts? Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking that we can just talk amongst ourselves. I think you can, but I think that excuse me. One of the things I find that's striking me, like sitting here across from both of you, is that we all have experienced like institutional disappointment, right? Yeah. Of like.
Yes.
of like, oh, you know, like the program being sunsetted or whatever, like, you know, poetic language for dismantling that, right?
Yep.
And then I'm thinking of, you know, we started the Abolitionist Decolonial Education Collective.
Yep.
So I'm just like, I'm thinking a little bit about like what persists through or sustains through those kind of changes. I'm also struck right now that we all have connections to Judith through Writers Corps too, and so that's like another. I'm just sitting here being like, oh, there's all these connections I haven't thought about until like looking at both your faces right now next to each other. So I don't know if y'all want to talk about those things, or maybe that's
The interconnectedness.
maybe that's enough.
Wow, I was just thinking about Judith. Judith was, for those that don't
No, Judith was a really exceptional teaching artist that worked at San Quentin for many, many years and did such an excellent job of like supporting folks if you were working in the inside. And Judith passed away. She was also one of the spearheads of the Writers Corps Teaching Artists in Residency program, a huge champion of the program. Just an exceptional poet and also teacher. It was the first time that like, it kind of like when you're imagining something, like I was like, I love teaching, I love being an artist, and this person is actually like supporting both of those parts of me, which just was so rare. And she built this program that was really exceptional, and she gave me such great advice too when I started working at Juvenile Hall. I think she was like, you know, you want to be cool with the teachers, but also with the guards, because you know, there's kind of stratification between those two groups of people. Sometimes the guards are folks that are from the community, and the teachers tend to be more white or like not really from the community, and you want to be, you know, kind of she just taught me how to navigate within this space that was just really constricting, and how I was going to be able to advocate for myself and make sure that, and at first it took like a year for people to realize I wasn't just a volunteer. They were just kind of like, who's that lady? But the guards started to just respect me, because when I would go in, there was never any problems. Like they didn't have to do lockdowns, and the kids wouldn't. I think there was one fight in the like 8 years I taught, because I would just have them hella engaged. Like I made sure that it was rigorous, but it was also not too difficult. And they were able to just stay on top of it. The best advice I ever got, or not advice, but the best testimonial I ever got was a young man told me, that was such a good workshop, I almost forgot I was in prison for a second.
Wow.
And I was like, thank you.
Jeez.
I'm glad. I wish you weren't here though.
Wow. I'm not going to add anything, because I think that's a brilliant way to answer that, respond to that question. And I do want to just acknowledge y'all chiming in, because I think a part of this event is thinking about intersectionality between art and social justice and being in the world, right? And fighting for prison abolition. So I wanted to ask y'all to kind of lean into the dream side and think about, again, those experiences. So I'm going to read, as long as it's legible, I'm going to read some of the stuff y'all wrote. The first one says, when I teach fiction in class with social justice themes, many of my students express understanding a new perspective and caring deeply about it. Empathy for the first time. Creative writing opens doors that we have the choice to walk through. So thanks for whoever wrote that. Cool. Graffiti plus Black Lives Matter activism.
I misunderstood the. It's okay.
No, it works. No, it works as a
It works.
response.
It was a quote.
Yeah.
It's a quote.
You did a great job.
Nope.
Sorry.
Arts.
Okay.
Arts and social justice, reciting two poems focused on the climate crisis in our current political context at the Bay's immigration.
BCS, Bay Area Youth Climate Summit.
Cool. Thank you so much. Yeah. Word. One of the facets of capitalism is land destruction and the exploitation of land, right? And how that affects climate. So all of this is connected. You know? Leaders putting money to more problems and not solutions. Okay. Yep. I saw a picture of Ruby Bridges walking to school. Word. This one I am not going to be able to read because I can't read it. Eating pancakes. Immigrant support. I'm sorry, whoever wrote this. The Great Tortilla Conspiracy.
Maybe.
You have a better teacher reading?
Printing posters by hand through Mobile Sanctuary Bike Project.
Ooh, yeah.
Eating pancakes, screen printed with immigrant support messages on tortillas.
Yeah.
Artist, The Great Tortilla Conspiracy.
Hey, cool. Shout out whoever wrote that. Yeah.
Amen.
The first time I listened to the Fight the Power by Public Enemy, I was 12. All right. Speaking of June Jordan, her poem about my rights, which is a brilliant poem. Y'all look that joint up. A dance performance in a small San Francisco space. Joe Kreider?
Right.
Kreider, cool. An iron bed hanging from a wall, another suspended from the ceiling, dances moving on and off the floor, words from incarcerated women being read about the bed in prison, Oasis, Horizon, Claw Trap, cool, Vessel. Yeah, that's you, Kirk?
Yeah.
Shout out Kirk. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's it. So, thank y'all for that. And again, hopefully, y'all were able to see how the experiences that y'all have had also relate to the intersectionality that we're discussing up here too. I want to give y'all at least 2 questions. We're running out of time, and there's one last thing I want to do. But if any of y'all have like a burning question, we'd love to field a couple of those.
Thank you all for your wonderful words. My question is, there are many kinds of art. Maddy, you were saying how you are engaged in many kinds of artistic practices. What is it about poetry for you that allows for maybe a new perspective, maybe a new way into people's hearts? I'm just really curious. What is special for you about poetry? Both of you.
I love that question. Because I have an answer. I think that what drew me to poetry, because I did like performance things when I was growing up, but poetry allows you to create a language within a language. So like, and then there's comparative poetry between languages, which is a whole nother universe. But I really resonated with that, especially because I had actually learning disability. I still do, technically, dyslexia, which I was diagnosed in 4th grade. And I had such a difficult time expressing myself. And I actually at some points thought that I was just like stupid and I just was incapable of learning how to read or write. And then I found poetry, which kind of, again, there's form to it, but then there's also a lot of expansiveness within the form. And so I was obsessed with it after that, the way that I could tell stories, the way that I could talk about emotions, that it shows you that there's a full color spectrum of emotions besides just like happy, sad. There's emotions that we haven't even figured out words for yet. And so that really obsessed me. And then the last thing I'll say is that poetry also distills complex concepts. And I think that's why I've kind of gone into like communications narrative, because my ability to use poetry to like talk about complicated issues or complicated ideas and make it so that like, because I always wrote poetry so people could understand. Some people do the opposite, which I'm like, why are you doing that? And so basically I wanted to reach a lot of people, and it can help you do those things, I think.
How about you?
Well, one of the things I thought about, especially as you're talking, Maddy, is like how like political rhetoric uses language in the same way that we do, right? Joseph Stalin's first act, was like, yo, kill off all the poets in the night of the murdered poets. Why? Because poetry as a language is about distillation. And if you're someone that's using propaganda to control, in that way, then poetry is your enemy. In the United States, there's the war on drugs, right? Popularized, which allowed for the dehumanization of folks in the prison industrial complex to swell, right? There's illegal aliens, right? There's all these kind of uses of language that allows us to mistreat or oppress folks. And so my understanding of language, especially as it relates to poetry, is this idea that the way that I operate and move in the world, informed by my bodily experience, is how I express through the poems. So for me, everything is bodily. Everything is about deriving from the body the same way that orality does. Cool. Other questions? Thanks for the question. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. I want to end by with the great Miriam Kaba again, and hopefully this is inspirational. This event has been inspirational, but also I hope it activates you in some way. So this is not just like an event and you come and feel good, or like, hey, that was cool, and then like you move into the world the same way that you were. Hopefully you leave a little bit transformed. Hopefully you are reimagining the world after this. And in such, I'm going to read a Kaba quote. We live in a society that has been locked into a false sense of inevitability. It's time to look hard at how this system came to be, who profits, how it functions, and why. And it's time to imagine what it would look like to see justice done without relying on the punishment and the barbarity of carceral systems. As writer and educator Erica Miner suggests, liberation under oppression is unthinkable by design. It is time for a jailbreak of the imagination in order to make the impossible possible. And yeah, I say to that. And finally, to bookend this, I began with Assata Shakur's love, and I'm going to end with Assata Shakur's affirmation. I believe in living. Actually, y'all help me read this. Would y'all be down to help me read this?
Yes.
There's enough of us where we can like take a line each and just kind of go around. Would that be cool? I'll start. I'll ask y'all to chime in, and then like Kirk, we can like work across, or y'all figure it out. Y'all are smart. All right. Affirmation. I believe in living.
I believe in the spectrum.
Of beta days and gamma people.
I believe in sunshine,
Maybe Amy.
windmills and waterfalls.
Cool.
Tricycles and rocking chairs.
I believe that seeds grow into sprouts. And sprouts grow into trees.
I believe in the magic of the hands.
And in the wisdom of the eyes.
I believe in rain and tears.
And in the bleed of infinity. Blood of infinity. Sorry, I don't have my glasses on.
I believe in life.
Yeah.
And have seen the death parade.
March through the torso of the earth.
Sculpting mud bodies in its path.
I have seen the destruction of daylight.
And bloodthirsty maggots prayed to.
And saluted.
I've seen the kind become the blind.
And the blind become the bind. In one easy lesson. I have walked on cut glass.
I've eaten crow and blunder bread. And breathed the stench of indifference.
I've been locked by the lawless.
Handcuffed by the haters.
And gagged by the greedy.
Sorry, I missed my...
And if I know anything at all.
It's not a wall, it's just a wall.
And nothing more at all.
It can be broken down.
I believe in living.
I believe in birth.
I believe in the sweat of love.
And in the fire of truth.
And I believe that a lost ship,
Guided by tired, seasick sailors, can still be guided home to port.
Yeah, shout out to y'all. Thank y'all so much for coming, for hanging out, staying all the way through. Another round of applause for Maddy.
Thank you for putting this on.
If you have other questions, if you want to just come and say hello, I'm sure they'd love to do so.
Also, once again, I have those free magazines in the back. That's a In These Times Takeover. It's all about a debt analysis if you want to learn more about the organizing work we're doing at the Debt Collective.